Hello, welcome to Kanilea Ukulele, and we're glad you're able to visit with us and go through the tour. This is our store here where we have a lot of different ukulele related items so that you can get yourself right into the feel of the Hawaiian instrument. My husband and I, Joe and myself, own Kanilea Ukulele, which has both handmade instruments here in Hawaii, and we also have our Islander line, which we've designed and created and is great for beginners and someone who's already advanced but would like to have an affordable instrument that's based on our building style. And we've got a lot of other fun stuff, shirts and hats and everything to go along with your ukulele. And I'm glad you're able to visit and go through the tour with us. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to email us or call us, and we'd be happy to help you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome to Kanilea Ukulele. Of course, my name is Joe Souza, and it's my wife Kristen and I who are the owners of Kanilea Ukulele. Now, we're in our milling department, and milling is an important part of the building of an ukulele. What we do is we get our dimensional lumber, and we're going to slice it down to eventually become a component on the ukulele, whether it be the front, the back, the sides of the instrument, the neck, the fingerboard, the bridge, and even the bracing will go through our milling area and ultimately becoming a component to the ukulele. Now, in our milling area, it's actually open air. We want the wood to naturally season. It's by design this way. By allowing the wood to naturally season, of course, it allows us to have a better sounding instrument on the finished or completed instrument. And I can explain a little bit about that. By air drying the wood, of course, as everybody knows, there's a saying in the instrument world, which is, the older an instrument gets, the better it sounds. And that's true. It's how the wood is seasoned that ultimately allows you to achieve a better sound on the finished instrument. So, by keeping our milling area open air, it allows the wood to naturally season and cure properly. We actually want the wood to dry slowly in our milling area, which allows us to, of course, have a better sounding instrument on the finished instrument. In milling, once the wood has been prepared and is ready to become the ukulele, we'll actually take it into our assembly area where we control our humidity. And we want to control the humidity because it controls the expansion and contraction of the wood. Now, most guitar builders are dealing with humidity a little differently than we are as ukulele builders here in Hawaii. Most guitar builders are building in a dry climate, and they're actually adding humidity to their shop to keep the wood very stable throughout the building process. Now, here in Hawaii, we actually have a very high humidity area outside of our shop. Inside our shop, we control the humidity by actually drying the air and cooling the air, which then controls the expansion and contraction of the wood. It allows the wood to properly be glued up when we go through the assembly of our ukulele. And of course, it allows for proper application of our UV cured polyester finish. So it's a very important part to the building of our ukuleles, which is the controlling of our humidity. Now we've come into our assembly department. And in assembly, this is where really the beginning of the ukulele building process starts. One of the first steps for the wood that will become the front, the back, and the sides of the instrument is at our laser. We have a CNC, or computer numerically controlled laser, that cuts out the components, the front, the back, the sides of the instrument. And then will become a set once again, once they're come off of the laser. So I've got an example of a set of koa that has been cut off of the laser. Of course, this is the sides of the instrument. They're book matched, so you can see that symmetrical grain. This is the front, or excuse me, the back and the front of the ukulele. And once again, you'll notice that same symmetrical or book matched grain for the front, back, and sides. These are going to be the head plate for this instrument. Now, what we'll do is we'll number each instrument, and that allows us to keep the instrument in order. We want to ensure after the instrument has got mid-sides bent and the front and back have been braced, when we actually go to assemble the instrument, we want to ensure that all of the hard work that was done in our milling area is continued through here in our assembly area, where the front, the back, and the sides are all matched up.
I'm Eric. How are you? Justin. And I'm Mark.
And I'm Henry. Mr. Henry's from milling, of course. Justin is working on neck right now. Eric is getting ready to do some assembly. And Mark is just getting ready to bend some sides. So, of course, this is our assembly area, and this is our assembly team, which then, of course, where your ukulele will be built is through our assembly team's wonderful hands.
So I'm going to put the sides in that were thickness on the thickness sander. Then I put them in the jig that's shaped like half of a guitar body. And then once I get it wet, the heating blanket heats up the water to almost boiling, about 300 degrees. And then when the steam comes to the wood, it makes the wood more pliable, so it's easier to bend. And that's pretty much it. Try not to crack them.
So the next thing after he bends the sides, we're going to do is called blocking. Blocking is going to take place, and this is our blocking jig. It's a solid piece of wood, and the reason we do that is because we don't want the sides to flex. We want no movement. This is the exact shape of our ukulele, tenor ukulele to be specific. So when he gets the sides out of the jig, they're going to come out looking somewhat like this. So it'll be a bent piece of wood. So we want it to be, if we were to just let this sit like this, it would slowly bend out a little bit. It would actually make it much more difficult to shape to the exact sides of the ukulele. So you want to get them pretty much out of that bending jig and into this blocking jig as quickly as you can. And so what we use is we actually use redwood. We use redwood for our blocks for two reasons. One, it's very light, and two, it's very strong. So you want it as much strength to hold the sides together as possible, while also not adding too much weight to the instrument. So after he blocks them up, and if you look up here, you'll see a bunch of instruments that are being blocked right now. And when they come back down from the block, they're actually going to switch jigs. Now these jigs right here are collapsible. And they have two little bolts right here, so when we put the top and the bottom on, we don't have to slide it up and down, we can just take it apart and just put it there. That'll come into play in a second. So we just watched him bend some soprano sides, and these are the soprano tops. When we cut these out on the laser, we give ourselves about 1/4 of an inch lip around the entire instrument, and that's because we're dealing with wood. Wood likes to do what wood's going to do. It's not steel. You can't machine it to 1/1000th of an inch and expect it to be that exact measurement the next day. Humidity, heat, all of these different things will play with it. So we want to give ourselves as much play as we possibly can. So one of the reasons that we make these collapsible jigs is specifically because of that lip. So when we glue the top and the bottom on, there's going to be an overhang. So if we have an exact fit to the sides, we won't be able to get the actual jig out. So we make them separable right at the center line right here. But before all that happens, we have what's called our go bar system. Go bars are fiberglass rods, and they're just slightly bigger than the surface to which we need to use them for. They're very bendable. They will snap if you go overboard. But what they do is they give you a good amount of downward even pressure. And so as you can see right here, this is actually a double glue up. Usually we do it in 2 stages. We're doing it in 1 right now because we need to get it moving ahead. But you can see a top. This is our concert top, and this is our bracing system. Our bracing system is unique to Kanilea. It's called True Ukulele Bracing. Total Resonating Ukulele, that's the acronym. And you can see this is fan bracing. This is the industry standard. So most guitar companies, classical guitar companies, actually use this fan bracing style. It looks just kind of like, but you can see on the angle right here, it's really just a flat piece of wood that fully connects with the entire soundboard. The difference between ours and theirs, though it may be similar in look, is actually this relief right here. If you look on every one of these braces, they all have a 20,000th inch relief. And what that does is it allows the soundboard to move in and out a lot more easily. So obviously, string tension against the soundboard, and when you strum the actual strings, it moves the soundboard in, out, up, down, and left and right. What that our bracing system allows it to do is more in and out much more, which gives you a clearer tone and also a warmer sound. So once these all get glued up, we're going to go over to assembly. Now, once the sides get blocked, we have to add what's called kerf lining. And kerf lining is just a wood inlay interior right here. It's basically just a strip. We pre-bend ours just to make it a little bit easier later on. And we use 2 different types. This is a good example. This is our standard. But when we have to do inlays on the top, which contain either pearl or a deep binding, we use a much thicker kerf lining like this. So you can see the size difference between the two. But these mainly give the sides rigidity. So when they come out of the blocks, it's just a thin piece of wood with two blocks holding it together, but this actually gives it that rigid form. So after that gets done, they're going to get rematched with their tops and backs, excuse me. And now we're going to glue it up. So right here is our little glue-up station. And you can see right here it's just a simple press. But the one thing that's different is since we radius the backs of our instruments, which means that they have that slight curve. And if you noticed back here, if you want to kind of pan back over here, if you notice back here, this is actually curved. So when we glue this brace on, let me just grab you an example here. When we glue this brace on, you can see that it has a natural curve to it, and that is the exact same curve that's in this radius. So the braces help give it the curve and help the back keep its curve. And when we glue it up over here, we're going to use that same compound radius, we're going to use that same form right here, and this is what's going to get sandwiched on the back of the instrument. So you can see right here, it's a good example, we've got a flat bottom, which is the soundboard, and we have that curved top, which is that radius. So when it gets sandwiched with even pressure. So the next step is after we have those all glued up and dried, we're going to take them up, we're going to take them into our room next door, which is our dirty room, or our machine room. We're going to flush route the sides so that they become much smoother, like this. They won't have any kind of overhang, they'll be smooth. If it needs any binding, we'll do that binding right here. You can see our giant tape ball. That's from when we do the binding, we take pieces of tape and actually bend it over the sides to secure it in there. A lot of companies use rubber bands, some use actual vacuum clamps, but it's actually a special tape. It's not your normal masking tape. It's actually very stretchy, so it enables you to get a lot more force behind it. All right. So after the bodies are done, now we have to connect the neck. One of the first stages of the neck is actually the fretboard. And these are our fretboards. The holes have been drilled out so that we can put our pearl inlays in them for the fret markers. And we do the fret markers before we actually do the fret wire. And what fret wire is just nickel. It's a piece of nickel like this, and we'll slowly go across fret by fret. And we'll take this little fretting hammer and we'll actually bang them into each fret all the way down. We only bang half the fret in. After we get half that fret bang in, we take it over to what's called our arbor press. And this is our arbor press. So once we get our fret wire in the actual groove, we can then apply even pressure. You have to make sure that this surface with the fret wires in it is very even all the way across, otherwise you'll get buzzing in your instrument. So we want to make sure that we do that well. And that's usually Justin right here. But once we get here and the fretboards are finished, and here's an example of a finished fretboard. Sorry. Right here. This is actually an ebony fretboard, and this is sand from Kanilea Beach. Is the actual fret marker, so that's a little bit different, pretty unique to us. So once we get here, now we actually have to attach the neck. So give me 1 second, because I'm going to find what I have here. There we go. So after we get the body assembled, this is our display model. It's only half the ukulele. We took a bandsaw and cut it in half so you can get a better view of this joint right here. So as you can see, we use a biscuit joint to connect our neck. Now, if you noticed in our sides, the sides actually had that groove in it when he bent them. And that's actually to accept this little biscuit right here. Now these biscuits are machined pieces of wood, but they're actually compacted under pressure. So a big steel arm comes down and compacts the wood. When water, or the water from the glue more specifically, hits the biscuit, it's going to expand again, which makes the joint very strong. So you can see, this is one that we've chopped apart. So this is actually, the biscuit actually expanded inside the joint, which makes the neck very, very solid to the body. And you obviously want that because you're going to have a lot of string tension from here to here, and a lot of pressure on that joint. So, once we put the neck on, we only have a few little things. We're going to glue the fretboard on. And so, I don't think you have any little models here. But, so after that, we'll come out, we'll do something like this after we attach the neck. then we'll actually glue our fretboard on. We'll actually glue the fretboard on to the ukulele. We do a flat. We don't have any kind of angle right here. A lot of acoustic guitars do, but that's to compensate for the additional string tension and steel strings. These are more classical instruments with nylon strings, so we don't need to compensate as much. Once that's glued up, it leaves our department, and then it goes upstairs. So, this is a more finished model. You remember when I was talking about that thick kerf lining? It's to compensate for something like that, which is curl around the edge, where you need to go into the soundboard more than usual. And yeah, so this had thick kerfing on the top and the back, because it had curl on the back as well. But, so we make them work, and now we're going to go upstairs to where they make them pretty.
Hi, I'm Bill, and I'm the shop manager here at Kanilea. And when the instruments come from downstairs and delivered up here, this is our finishing department. So we like to say that even though the instrument is all together, it looks like an ukulele, but it's really only half done at this point. So all the rest of it, the finish work, all the fret work, putting all the things, all the tuners on, the nut, the saddle, the bridge, all of that happens up here. So the first thing that we do is we lay out. What that means is we assign a bridge to the instrument. All our bridges are handmade, so once a bridge gets assigned, we write the number of the instrument on it, and it stays with that instrument. We go ahead and we locate exactly where I want this to be. And you might notice there's two holes here on the top of the instrument, and they correspond to the two holes that are in the slot on the bridge, not the four down below. But those holes in the slot will be covered up later by the saddle. What that means is that we can stick a pin, two pins in these holes, and anytime we want to put this bridge back on, it goes right through these two holes. So we know exactly where the bridge is supposed to be. That's important because during this process up here, this bridge will be on and off of this instrument 4 different times. This being the first time when it actually gets in placed. And of course, if this is in the wrong position this way or this way, the instrument will, this way wrong, it won't play in tune. This way wrong, the strings will be falling off the neck. So it's important to be exactly in the right spot. At this point also, the frets are very sharp from downstairs. You would not be able to play this, you'd cut your hand on this. The very first thing we do is lay out the bridge, then the next thing we do is top the frets. That means that we get all the frets on the same plane because they're put in by hand, and there may be, just one may be a little bit taller than the other, so we take a file and we top them off so that the tops of these are all on the same plane. The rest of the fret work will happen after the instrument has its finish. Next, we go ahead and put blue tape. You can see the blue tape on this one that already has finish on it. We'll tape off the fretboard in here so that when the finish happens, no finish gets on the fretboard. We want that to be remade raw. And you also might notice this light area here. That's a mask that after the guys out there do all their sanding and prepare to put the finish on, a piece of tape goes across here. The bridge goes on for the second time. They cut around this and pull off the excess tape, and that leaves a piece of tape right where the bridge is going to go. And then we do that because we don't want finish to be over the area where we're later going to glue the bridge on. We want to have wood-to-wood contact when we're gluing the bridge on. Later, the bridge will go on for the third time. We'll cut around this and pull that piece of tape out of there, and it will go back on for the fourth and final time when we actually glue it on. Okay, so if you'll follow me, we'll go out to where the finish actually happens. So you might notice, Lorraine, that we have all these instruments have gotten the treatment that I just described. So what we do is we build them ahead of time. And we find that this is the fastest way for our instruments to get to our customers, is we build them ahead of time. I try to keep everything that we might need in stock up here ready to go. Then when we get our orders, all we have to do is put them through to our finishers, and it makes it about a 3-week process, 2 to 3 week process once the finishing actually starts. So over here, these are groups of instruments that are already assigned to one of these guys, and they will get their finish in the next week or 2. What happens at that point, once they pick these up, a lot of sanding takes place, where we get all the sanding marks from downstairs. We start doing our fine sanding up here in preparation for the finish to go on. That includes, these corners are very sharp still, so they all get rounded off so that they feel good to the player. All the scratches are taken out. The final shaping of the neck to make sure that it's just right. All that happens prior to getting it finished, and that takes whatever their batches are. That anywhere from these guys do, depending on where they are in their learning process up here, from 6 to 8 instruments a week. So it takes about 2 days to prep their group of instruments. Next thing is that we'll go to our finishing room. Let me show you that. This is our spray booth, and you can see that's actually where we spray the finish on the instruments. And one of the things that makes Kanilea so unique in our industry is that we don't use a lacquer. Most people use lacquer to put a gloss finish on their instrument. We actually use an ultraviolet light cured finish. It's a polyester base. It was developed by Taylor Guitars, and it's actually much superior to the nitrocellulose lacquer that every other company basically is still using, or most of them. To get the kind of high gloss finish that we get on our instruments takes 12 to 16 coats of lacquer with 24 hours of drying time between each coat and several steps of sanding every third coat or so. So you can see that to get to go over 16 coats would take a minimum of 2 to 3 weeks, during which time 85% of what you spray on the instrument evaporates into the atmosphere. It also gets into our skin on a molecular level. It goes right to the bloodstream. So it's bad stuff. This finish that we use, we do 3 coats, wet on wet, 20 minutes apart. Then it goes in our light box. And these lights here they're special bulbs that shine at a very specific frequency of light that cause the polymers in the finish to bond together and harden, like 2 parts of epoxy, but it's not like epoxy. It's much softer. It actually expands and contracts at about the same rate as the wood, which lacquer does not. So as instruments go through different climates, or different temperature changes, the wood, of course, wants to expand and contract. This finish actually goes with that. So we don't have the cracking that you end up finding in a lot of lacquer finishes. And also, it's because of that, it actually moves with the wood a lot better than lacquer also. So we find that, in our humble opinion, our tone is greatly increased by that fact. So once the finish is on the instrument, it looks great. Let me see if I can find something that's just in spray. I don't think so. But all these guys will be working on a different stage. Once it's sprayed, it looks really shiny, but if you look at it closely, it has what we call an orange peel surface to it. Slight little tiny bumps. So what we do is we sand all those out and get it perfectly smooth. Then we use these 2 different bumping wheels with different grits of rouge that will bring the instrument to a high gloss shine. So at that point, they deliver it back to the room we were in previously, and we'll take a look at that shine, okay? So, let's see if you can get this is I don't know if you can tell, this is what we call a 30-foot shine. supposedly if you hold it up and you read a sign 30 feet in the back, that's what that's what we want to go for. But this is our Kanilea sign. We actually can get it from raw wood to this. If we were just to do, let me close this door. If we were just to do one instrument, we could actually take it from raw wood to this in about a half a day. It's that quick. And of course, there's no evaporation into the atmosphere with this finish. About 100% of what we spray on here stays on here. So it's good. It's not bad to the environment. It's not bad for us who work with it every day. Okay, so the next thing that happens, of course, after the fretwork is done, I'll use this as an example. So the next thing we do is we're going to put the nut on here, and of course we have to fit it, because these are handmade, so we're going to fit the nut exactly to each neck. We're going to put the saddle on, same thing, fit to each saddle, into each bridge. Strings go on, tuners go on, of course, and at that point we can tune it up. And I've got the fortunate job of being the first guy to play every one that comes out of here. So yeah, that's kind of fun for me. I'll do any final little adjustments on it to make it as player friendly as possible. And the next thing, it's finished, off to the customer. So Lorraine, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.